A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another book review today. So, cheers. This will actually be the last book review from this location as my wife and I are moving tomorrow. So, stay tuned for that goodness. But I'm here to bring you a review of Imperial Bedrooms by Bret, Easton, Ellis. Now, I am a huge fan of this author. I have been ever since I first read Less Than Zero. American Psycho, still one of the greatest novels, American novels ever written. And Imperial Bedrooms is his sequel to Less Than Zero, which I honestly had no idea that you could really make a sequel to that book, or that Bret Easton Ellis even wanted to revisit those same characters. Now, I'm not going to go into spoilers because the story is so fucking twisted that it would almost be impossible for me to kind of review this and let you know exactly what was going on between all of the characters. Bret Easton Ellis has this fantastic style of being able to write his characters in such a way that everything becomes interconnected towards the end, and it's just like a fucking pretzel knot. But those of you that don't want to watch the review and just want to know my thoughts on it, this book is fucking phenomenal, and in my opinion, it is better than Less Than Zero. Now, you could argue that, of course it is, Less Than Zero was his first novel, and this is coming much later in his career. Yeah, I get it. You can argue that. That's fine. But a lot of people hold Less Than Zero up because Bret Easton Ellis was one of what I like to call the first rock and roll authors out there. This guy could go into like nightclubs and stuff like that and not have to pay cover charge, and everyone knew him, and he was like in that kind of a scene. Imperial Bedrooms shows that he has not only evolved as an author, but the plot of this book is so well crafted that you cannot, well, I've read this book 3 times now. This is my 3rd reading of it. I can't find a fault in the plot. You know, a lot of people go, well, there's a plot hole here, there's a plot hole here. Good fucking luck with this one. If you can, hey, all the power to you. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought of it. But I'm going to jump straight into the next episode of...
Read a fucking book. 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 People.
If you haven't read Less Than Zero, go and watch my review of it. I did a review a while back of the novel itself, but Imperial Bedrooms picks up with the same narrator, Clay, from Less Than Zero. And this is, you know, set in modern times, not back in the 80s. He's become a successful screenwriter, and he has just moved back from New York. He's moved back to LA, which is where Less Than Zero was set. What's interesting about this is the opening about the opening 20 pages. It establishes that Less Than Zero, he acknowledges that the novel Less Than Zero is about his life. He calls the author, he doesn't call the author Bret Easton Ellis, he just calls him the author. And he acknowledges that the author was a part of their circle and took their life and wrote a novel about it called Less Than Zero. And so you get kind of this meta-fiction happening. Not only that, the film Less Than Zero that came out after the novel was written, starring Robert Downey Jr., the narrator of this book, the same guy, Clay, goes to a screening of that because it is a movie based on a book based on the life of him and his friends. So he and his friends all go to this screening of Less Than Zero, and they realize this is nothing like what happened. And if you watch the movie, you will understand the movie is nothing like what happens in the book. So we have all of the same characters, the narrator, Clay. We have Blair, who was in Less Than Zero, was his on-again, off-again girlfriend. We have Julian, who in Less Than Zero was the kind of drug addict guy that was in debt and that kind of needed Clay's help towards the end of the novel. But it's like 40 years on, give or take. 30 years on, 40 years on, whatever. And they're all changed. As I said, Clay is a successful screenwriter. Blair has a husband called Trent, who's kind of like a movie producer slash agent. And Julian is kind of doing his own thing. So Clay hasn't spoken to these people in many, many years. And he comes back to LA from New York. The reason he comes back to LA is because there was a novel that many people deemed could not be made into a film. And Clay managed to write a successful screenplay based on that novel. And so the producers and director want him to come and help with the casting of the film. So that's why he is back in LA for that reason. He has his own place. This apartment that he bought after the previous owner had killed themselves. So there's kind of that in the background. Pardon me. I apologize for that. So you've got this story of Clay coming back to Hollywood, and you get this whole insight into the Hollywood mindset, the mindset of producers and directors. Clay's going to these parties and meeting these people and so on and so forth. He reconnects with Blair, who he hasn't spoken to in 2 years. Blair warns him to stay away from Julian. The reason being that Blair and Julian were in a relationship and Julian broke it off for whatever reason. We do find out the reason in the book. At the same time, Clay kind of falls for this wannabe actress called Rain, and she becomes the focal point of the entire story. All of these side characters that Clay meets during his time back in LA kind of get drawn into this Rain storyline, which is kind of the main thing that runs through the entire book. Now, I'm not going to spoil what happens. Clay has definitely changed his outlook on life as opposed to what was depicted in Less Than Zero. But as we get at the beginning of the book, Less Than Zero was a fictional account of Clay's life and not really entirely true to form. Clay makes kind of contacts here and there and ultimately gets kind of tangled up in this storyline involving himself, Julian, a movie guy called Rip, and to a lesser extent, Blair and her husband, Trent. And it's this big kind of tangled knot. Now, we only really see this from Clay's point of view because Clay is the sole narrator of the novel. And I think in that way is why it works so fucking well. Because when Clay's paranoid, we're paranoid. When Clay's apathetic, we're apathetic. It really, really serves the point of the story. And then at the end, there is a curveball. There is a twist that you just don't see coming that makes your stomach just fucking sink with the nature of it. Now, what Bret, Easton, Ellis does really well is run-on sentences, which in a lot of books I do find annoying. Blah, blah, blah happened, and blah, 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 and blah, 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 and. But because it's Clay and we're getting Clay's train of thought, it works surprisingly well. Also, you get so many descriptions of LA that you kind of feel like you've been there. Like, I really don't need to go to that city anymore because I've read this book and I kind of know the layout of the city of LA, which is one of the things that Bret Easton Ellis does really, really well. So, what did I ultimately think of this book? I think it's one of Bret Easton Ellis's masterpieces in his wide range of fiction. I would honestly put this book in my top 20 of books of all time, provided you've read Less Than Zero, which is a fantastic novel on its own. But if you've read Less Than Zero, you will get more out of this than if you just read this as a standalone novel. You've got to understand the mindset behind Less Than Zero, the book and the movie, because that's referenced in here as well, to get an understanding of the characters. And a lot of times you would think that's not a good thing, unless the author's writing a trilogy or something like that. You'd be like, I don't want to read this just to understand this. No, it works. And they're not that long. These novels aren't large novels. I read this in 2 days. So, yeah, I'm just going to end it there. This was Imperial Bedrooms by Bret Easton Ellis. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Of course, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of Plaguelands Media's fucking awesome videos. But until then, stay safe, have a fantastic rest of your day, raise a boombox to the window of a girl that you are in love with. If you don't get that movie reference, fuck you. Read a fucking book, people.